Is that frosty or what? Don't get too excited now. We're on our way over from South Base, Grand Turk, to Long Key, South Caicos Island. Bringing up some refreshments for the crew. Dolphins. As we cross the Caicos Bank, Mona's whistling at them like a dog.
That scared them away.
Interesting because you can see them quite clearly here against the bottom, whereas out there in the ocean, it's a different case. Yeah, they're just swimming along beside us, maybe about 30 feet out, 40 feet out. Coming closer now.
Trying to find the other little guy.
Hey, it took off. Heading back home.
Yeah, the little one took off, so he took off after him.
Oh, the other little one went that way first, and then the bigger one followed. Yeah. Wow, that's great.
I started whistling when they were over there, and they came over. I don't know if they heard me or not. I'd like to think that we were talking.
Yeah. So following over the Caicos Bank here toward Sapodilla Bay, weren't really sure exactly what this experience was going to be like, because there was all these warnings, don't do it at night, look out for the coral heads and stuff. Well, you find out that the coral heads are here and there. We've had to change course for them numerous times, just 10 degrees this way, 10 degrees that way, and then back on course. And they appear as just small perhaps 10 foot in diameter or maybe 20 foot in diameter black patches on the water here and there, and you go around them. Not to be confused with some of the other markings, which are the shadows of the clouds on the water. And of course there's the odd rock here and there, actually quite a few of those going by underneath. The blacker the object, the closer to the surface. The ones that are really an angry, dirty looking green black, they're really close to the surface. You don't see too many of those. Well, we are making good time here. We are motor sailing to make sure we're doing at least 6 knots. It's hard to tell exactly how fast we're going because the radio inside just gives us instantaneous speed reads with its GPS, so we don't get an average even over a few seconds, so it's constantly changing. But I'd say we're doing about 6 knots, and we're going to be able to get to Sapodilla Harbor by between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, which is going to give us plenty of time to get settled before it gets dark. So that was what we wanted to do. Well, we spent a very movement-filled night that had Ramona and I in the rear cabin here at French Key, uninhabited bird sanctuary. You can't go ashore, so after one night we're going to move on. These are beautiful surroundings, though. And after our one night at French Key, we're heading off over the horizon to a low little island, much larger, West Caicos, where there's some interesting ruins of an old town called Yankee Town, which is a sisal growing operation from the turn of the century. So that should be interesting to look at. And then a little bit north of that, hopefully we'll spend the night at a place which was going to be a marina, but the funding fell through somehow, and so there is a basin there that apparently you can anchor in. And so that should give us lovely protection. So we'll see what that's like. Maybe tonight will be much calmer than last night. Watching the depths here as we leave the Caicos Bank. And now we're sailing by Molasses Reef, and smack dab in the middle of it there is a wreck here. But Molasses Reef is most important for the fact that it holds the oldest shipwreck in the Western Hemisphere. I believe it was a caravel, something like along the lines of Columbus's ships. But it's not one of them, obviously, but yeah, this is a historical site here. Beautiful day out today. Well, that night was spent at a delightful anchorage here. This is West Caicos Marina. It's a marina which is having financial difficulties and has not been able to complete for a number of years now. And they don't mind you anchoring in here, although they don't want you to go ashore. So it's perfectly protected. And it's in a little bay, tiny little bay. And of course, there's no waves or swells to worry about. That's a full 360 view there, going back now toward the opening. And we'll probably spend another night here, for sure. At least 2 nights total here. It's now the 12th of January. And it's a beautiful spot. We're going to go off today in a minute and do a little exploration down to the south, toward the south end of West Caicos, where there's some historical sites to see. That's Prince Diamond over there in the marina. Now, whereas Yankee Town was a 1850s sisal farming experiment that didn't quite work out, this here, these things here put together would make a star shape, I believe. And interestingly enough, I think we may have finally reached upon a place called Star City, which was a DEA outpost here in the islands back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, these are some sort of shelters of some sort. But what's this made out of? Fiberglass, I guess. But it looks like you can put them together, they would make a star. And Star City was named after 2 Quonset huts that had a star shape. Oh, there's one over there. I think this is it. Very cool. Let's go take a look. Shotgun blast in the door. Yeah, it could be. DEA, yeah. Tractor. Everything rusted away to nothing. Oh, very cool. I can get in there without falling over. Nice place to have a little lunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-lobed star. 6-pointed star. Well, there's one of the walls of Yankee Town. And just about 30 to 50 meters south of the buildings in Yankee Town, there's this like cutting that runs off to the east, and I believe this cutting was for the railroad that went here. There are many of these rusted metal things here. They all look the same, and my guess is that they are part of the railroad that was here, and another one right here as well. And I believe this cutting exists because the railroad is descending down to the saltwater lake below us here. I'm going to try to get closer to it because I think I can see a causeway going across it. Well, I'm down in the cutting right now, looking back the direction toward the road, and there's a lot more of these iron pieces here, and I believe these are railroad ties, metal railroad ties. So I'm just going to walk along the some terrible grabby bushes. More of these ties everywhere. I'm going to walk along this cutting, and sort of a path here. And now the cutting becomes an embankment. And look at the railroad ties on this now. Now, is that clear or what? They just still laid out more or less in the shape that they were. It was a very narrow gauge railroad, just for bringing sisal over to the windward side of the island, I guess. Lovely day, Ramona's last full day in paradise. We've just come to the beach here in Sapodilla Bay. Putting your sunglasses so people don't recognize you?
It's bright out here.
It's incognito out here now. Yeah. She hates this life. Just hates it. Terrible vacation.
Want to go for a swim?
Sure. And just perhaps 100 feet down the road here, this is the access road going down to the paved highway. There's a sign here indicating a historical site. Carvings in the rocks made by, well, depending on who you read, or where you're reading the story, either early settlers on the island or shipwrecked sailors, which perhaps is a more exotic explanation. But anyway, we're going to go take a look at some of these interesting rock carvings. There's a nice view from up here on Sapodilla Hill. Prince Diamond down there. And as well, just behind Sapodilla Bay, you can see in the distance there Chalk Sound, which is a great restaurant at Neptune's Villas called La Brisas. That's actually the building right at the center of the screen there now with a little cupola on it. That's the restaurant. Alright, this is Ramona's last night on board. And we're having a little champagne that we've got kept in a blanket here for safekeeping. And grilled chicken legs off our barbecue with the special wood chips on there for the flavor. Just close that up here so we can see the sunset.